gonna get it, never gonna get it, never gonna get it. Whoa, 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 whoa. Never gonna get it, never gonna get it.
Welcome to Movie Recap Time. The story begins in a high school locker room where a chubby and awkward student, Robbie, is enjoying a carefree moment. He thought he was safe in the shower, but suddenly, a group of bullies storms in, grabbing Robbie and dragging him into the gymnasium during the final school assembly. In the gym, Kelvin Joyner, better known as the Golden Jet, stands at the pinnacle of his high school glory. He's moments away from receiving the coveted Student of the Year award, the crowd roaring in admiration. But just as the ceremony reaches its peak, chaos erupts. The doors fly open, and Robbie Werdict, humiliated and completely exposed, is hurled onto the stage. The cheers instantly shift to uproarious, merciless laughter, filling the room like a tidal wave. As the gym erupts, Kelvin's confident smile fades. Without hesitation, he steps forward, slips off his bomber jacket, and drapes it over Robbie's shoulders. The laughter begins to die as Robbie, shielded by Kelvin's simple act of kindness, scrambles off the stage. Fast forward 20 years, and Kelvin's life is far from the bright future everyone predicted. No longer the golden boy, he's now an accountant stuck in a job he doesn't like, envying co-workers who climb the corporate ladder while he stays in place. At lunch with his wife Maggie, who was once his high school sweetheart, Kelvin watches his colleagues celebrate a promotion nearby. The cheerful scene only deepens his feelings of inadequacy. Maggie tries to cheer him up, showing off the dress she's excited to wear for their upcoming 20-year reunion. But Kelvin hesitates, eventually admitting he doesn't want to go. Frustrated, Maggie tells him his negativity is wearing down their relationship. Back at work, Kelvin scrolls through Facebook, aimlessly trying to distract himself. A friend request pops up from someone named Bob Stone. The name doesn't ring a bell, but curiosity gets the better of him, and he accepts. Almost immediately, he receives a message from Bob asking to meet. After a brief back and forth, Kelvin realizes something shocking. When Kelvin tells Maggie, she's skeptical but eventually remembers Robbie and lets him go. At the pub that night, Kelvin is greeted by a towering, muscular man who radiates confidence, Bob Stone. Kelvin can't believe his eyes. This can't possibly be the same Robbie Werdict who was humiliated in front of the entire school. As they catch up, Bob casually mentions he used to work as a federal contractor but was recently let go. While he's gone, another man tries to take Bob's seat. Kelvin attempts to resolve the situation diplomatically, but when Bob returns, the mood shifts dramatically. Without hesitation, Bob beats the man senseless, grabs Kelvin, and drags him out of the pub before anyone can react. Still in shock, Kelvin follows Bob to their old high school, where nostalgia and unresolved emotions come flooding back. Bob reflects on the trauma of his humiliation, while Kelvin confesses his frustrations about not living up to the potential everyone once saw in him. To lighten the mood, Bob urges Kelvin to perform the legendary backflip he was known for in high school. Encouraged, Kelvin gives it a try, only for the attempt to go hilariously wrong, sending him crashing to the ground in an embarrassing heap. The night continues at Kelvin's house, where Bob casually asks for help with a parole issue. Confused but trying to be polite, Kelvin agrees to look into it. When he checks the laptop, he finds something far more concerning: offshore accounts containing millions of dollars. Bob's attempt to explain is cut short when he accidentally spills beer on the laptop, frying it. Shrugging off the chaos, Bob asks if he can crash at Kelvin's place for the night. The next morning, a loud knock at the door jolts Kelvin awake. Standing outside is a team of CIA agents, led by the no-nonsense Agent Harris. They barge in, demanding to know where Bob is. Kelvin tries to explain that Bob stayed the night, but when the agents search the house, there's no trace of him. Harris reveals shocking information. Bob is wanted for treason, murder, and stealing classified information, which he allegedly plans to sell to enemy nations. Kelvin is stunned when Harris adds that Bob listed him as his emergency contact on official documents. Panicking, Kelvin denies knowing anything, realizing he's been pulled into something far more dangerous than he could have imagined. At work, Kelvin gets an unexpected call from Bob, who casually mentions he's hiding somewhere in the building. Kelvin, panicked and desperate to distance himself from the chaos, immediately alerts the CIA. Agent Harris and her team storm the office, but Bob, as slippery as ever, outmaneuvers them with ease. Setting off the sprinklers, he creates a scene of pure chaos, soaking everyone and turning the office into a waterlogged war zone. Before Kelvin can slip away, Bob confronts him.
"Are you in or out?" he demands.
Kelvin, drenched and frantic, with dramatic flair, Bob ignites a tide to the sprinkler system, triggering another round of alarms and pandemonium. In the midst of the madness, Bob tackles Kelvin, declaring him a hostage as Kelvin flails helplessly. The CIA agents burst in, becoming an accidental participant in the chaos. Bob takes down several agents with impressive skill, but the tide turns when one agent manages to wrap a chain around his neck. Desperate, Bob yells to Kelvin for help. Kelvin, now holding a gun he has no idea how to use, accidentally fires it. To his shock and Bob's relief, the shot hits the agent, freeing Bob. Before the CIA can recover, Bob knocks out another agent, throws Kelvin into a postal cart, and charges toward the exit. Just as they're about to escape, Agent Harris and her team block their path. Kelvin, still hoping to salvage some sense of normalcy, attempts to negotiate, triggers the sprinklers again, and tosses a flash bomb. With a dramatic leap, he and Kelvin crash through a window, landing on an inflatable gorilla outside. Amid a hail of gunfire, the pair scrambles into an Uber and speeds away. Kelvin, still processing the insanity of the last few minutes, demands answers. Bob, calm as ever, explains that the stolen encryption keys are part of a U.S. spyware system capable of compromising national security. "We have to stop the trade," Bob insists, as if this is the most obvious thing in the world. Kelvin, however, is less than convinced. He demands Bob turn himself in, but Bob reminds him that they're both now considered fugitives and need to clear their names first, pointing out that she claimed Bob stole the codes. Bob denies it, explaining that he and his partner, Phil, were tracking the notorious Black Badger during a mission. According to Bob, Phil was killed in an elevator explosion, and Harris framed him for both Phil's death and the missing codes. Their Uber ride takes a sharp turn literally. A motorcyclist slams into the window, striking Bob in the face with a spinning tire, retaliates by throwing a metal pipe into the bike's wheels, sending the rider flying. While Bob deals with the chaos, Kelvin seizes the opportunity to escape on the motorbike. "You've got this, buddy," Kelvin shouts over his shoulder, leaving Bob to handle the rest of the fight solo. Kelvin, desperate for normalcy, calls Maggie and urges her to meet him at their therapist's office instead of going home. Arriving at the session, Kelvin does his best to act normal but only ends up looking more suspicious. Maggie immediately notices something is off. Before Kelvin can explain, Agent Harris shows up, forcing him into a van for questioning. Harris accuses Bob of being the Black Badger, claiming he betrayed his partner to steal the codes. However, she admits that Kelvin's cooperation is crucial since Bob clearly trusts him. Kelvin, reluctantly, agrees to help. Armed with a tracking device, Kelvin is sent into the field to lure Bob out of hiding. At the therapist's office, Kelvin's plan takes an awkward turn when Bob unexpectedly joins the session. Playing along with the therapy games, Bob dives into the role with enthusiasm, much to Kelvin's horror. When Kelvin finally snaps, Maggie mistakes his outburst for a lack of commitment to their marriage. Heartbroken, she storms out, leaving Kelvin devastated and more entangled in Bob's chaos than ever. Bob convinces Kelvin to help him, assuring him that he's fighting for the right cause. At first, Trevor greets them with a polite and almost apologetic demeanor. He even offers a half-hearted apology to Bob for how he treated him in the past. But the act doesn't last long. Trevor's smirk returns as he mockingly admits he hasn't changed at all. He doubles down on his insults, reveling in his past cruelty. Bob, visibly shaken by the encounter, shuts down and walks away without a word. Kelvin, however, isn't about to let Trevor off the hook. He confronts Trevor, chastises him for his behavior. On the way out, Calvin receives a call from Agent Harris, who delivers an ultimatum: turn Bob in or Maggie will be charged with conspiracy. Outside, Bob apologizes to Calvin, admitting that Calvin was the only person who ever treated him with kindness. He promises never to betray Calvin, but guilt overwhelms Calvin, and he confesses that he's already given their location to Harris. Within moments, the CIA arrives, capturing both Bob and Calvin. While restrained, Calvin is consumed with regret as he hears Harris interrogating and torturing Bob at a secret facility. He overpowers an agent, grabs a weapon, and forces his way into Bob's room. Inside, Calvin frees Bob and subdues Harris, who warns Calvin that he's making a huge mistake. Despite the warning, Calvin stands firm, determined to do what he believes is right. As they escape, Bob seems shaken and begins doubting himself. He insists he's just Robbie the Tool and denies being a spy. Calvin confronts him, reminding Bob that his self-made persona, Bob Stone, isn't just a mask, it's who he's become. Drawing a parallel to his own nickname, Golden Jet, Calvin encourages Bob to own his identity and rise above his past. They shake hands, but Calvin notices Bob's fractured finger, a silent reminder of the risks they've taken. The two work together to escape, with Calvin unexpectedly taking out several agents along the way, even surprising himself. "Maybe I'm a natural at this," he quips, before quickly realizing he's committing serious crimes. When a stolen key card fails to work, Bob calmly handles the problem by holding an agent at gunpoint to force their way out. They steal a vehicle, and Bob hands Calvin a phone. The data leads them to Boston, but they need a plane to get there. At a private airstrip, Calvin distracts a security guard with a hilariously overcomplicated story while Bob sneaks into the hangar and pulls a plane onto the runway. As they take off, Calvin begins piecing things together and voices his suspicion that Agent Harris might actually be the Black Badger. When they land, the designated meeting location seems too exposed. Calvin spots an underground parking garage nearby and deduces that the trade must be happening there. Bob suggests they split up, but Calvin refuses, insisting they stay in contact in case things go sideways. Bob enters the parking garage, and it's clear the criminals are expecting him. Meanwhile, Calvin, trying to be stealthy, spots Harris arriving on the scene. Convinced she's the Black Badger, Calvin follows her, but quickly gets caught up in the chaos. Inside the garage, Bob hands a package to the buyer. Bob's supposedly dead partner steps out of the shadows. Grinning, he declares himself the real Black Badger. Calvin arrives at the worst possible moment, finding both Bob and Phil accusing each other of being the traitor. Before anyone can make sense of the situation, Harris bursts in, guns blazing, and chaos erupts. Calvin ducks behind cover, clutching the drives, as bullets fly in every direction. A buyer pursues him in a car, but Bob swoops in, narrowly rescuing Calvin in the nick of time. As Calvin keeps running, he ends up cornered on a bridge. There, the final showdown begins. Bob and Phil confront Calvin, each desperately trying to convince him of their innocence. Calvin, caught between the two and holding the fate of the mission in his hands, must decide who to trust. A chaotic shootout erupts, with Calvin caught in the crossfire. In a panic, he accidentally shoots Bob. Horrified, Calvin tries to aim at Phil, but his gun clicks. Empty. Phil, smug as ever, taunts Calvin, calling Bob too weak to ever be the Black Badger. He recounts with pride how he faked his death and framed Bob for everything, savoring his villainous monologue like he's auditioning for a spy movie. Phil orders Calvin to kneel, clearly enjoying his moment of power. Desperate and out of options, Calvin attempts his infamous Golden Jet flip as a last-ditch distraction. Predictably, the flip goes hilariously wrong, leaving Calvin's Bob just enough of an opening. Summoning his strength, Bob takes down Phil in brutal fashion, even ripping out his trachea before tossing him unceremoniously into the river. With the crisis finally resolved, Bob and Calvin hand the encryption drives over to Agent Harris. Surprisingly, she thanks them for their service, suggesting Calvin consider a career with the CIA. Calvin, still processing the chaos, gives her a half-hearted laugh, clearly unsure if she's joking. At the high school reunion, Maggie confronts Calvin, tells Maggie that she's the reason he's happy with his life and that nothing else matters. Moved by his honesty, Maggie smiles and they share a heartfelt kiss. Inside the gym, the prom king and queen are announced. To everyone's surprise, Bob is crowned prom king. With a confident stride, he punches Trevor in the face, knocking him out cold. Bob takes the microphone and delivers an emotional speech, thanking Calvin for helping him accept himself and reminding everyone that it's never too late to embrace who you truly are. The crowd erupts in applause. In a moment of self-liberation, Bob removes his clothes, standing proudly in front of the entire room. But instead of the ridicule he once feared, Bob is met with cheers and admiration. The gym, Bob reconnects with his high school crush, who flirts with him and seals the moment with a kiss. Months later, Calvin and Maggie prepare for their growing family, with Maggie visibly pregnant. Outside their home, Bob arrives to wish Calvin luck on his first day with the CIA. As a token of their friendship, Bob hands Calvin his old high school blazer, a symbol of how far they've both come. The film ends with Calvin and Bob driving off into the sunset, their unlikely friendship stronger than ever. Thank you for watching. Make sure to hit the like button. It really helps the channel grow. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an exciting story. More thrilling recaps are on the way, and you won't want to miss them. Drop a comment below and let me know your favorite moment from this story. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Stay tuned, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one. Movie Recap Time Team.